Hello, and welcome to the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. I'm Amanda Butland, your host and intuitive life coach.
All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Embrace Balance Discover Joy podcast. Today, my special guest is Tamara Andreas. She's the co-author of the book Core Transformation and international seminar leader and coach. Tamara, thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, I'm so honored to be your guest, and thank you for introducing me to your people.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm excited to have the conversation and share what you do with the audience today. But before we get started, I'm going to start with my little icebreaker question.
Mhm.
Would you mind sharing with us what activity or hobby brings you the most joy and why?
Well, I could answer that in different ways, but okay, so this might sound like kind of boring to some people, I don't know, but I really like coming up with new healthy recipes. And because I love, I really care about my health and I really enjoy being creative. And and because I stick to what I consider really healthy nutrients and I have like a special diet, so there's always a challenge to it. And so yeah, so I like it that it's creative, it's fun, and it tastes good.
Awesome. I
And it's
love
healthy.
that.
So yeah.
I
Uh,
love the creativity that you bring into being and eating healthy. I also have a very specific diet, and so I love hearing that sort of thing because I'm also a big foodie and always trying to figure out new recipes for um, how to create something different with, the things that you can eat. So I love that. We might have to swap recipes sometime.
yeah, definitely. Uh,
All right, so we're just going to dive right in. And, one of the things, since I mentioned the book that you co-authored, I was
mhm.
wondering if we might start there with
Yeah.
maybe just for you sharing with us sort of what this book is all about, and maybe how you came about writing it.
Yeah, so the book is Core Transformation, Reaching the Wellspring Within. And so it's all about the core transformation process. And so how I came about writing it. So back, like more than 30 years ago, I was co-director of a training organization, an NLP training institute in Ohio. So, and my sister, Connie Ray Andreas, she was and is a developer in the field of NLP and coming up with new methods and things like that. So when she came out to teach part of our master practitioner training, she said, instead of teaching what I was going to teach, I'm going to teach this because it's better. It's better than anything else that I know. She was just so excited about it and had just developed it. And indeed, it does some things that nothing else that we knew could do. And so, she taught it to our group, and for a 3-day segment of our master practitioner course. And so in those 3 days, so what I saw when I was going around to help people with the exercise is that not only were people making changes in their feelings, in their patterns of thinking, and their behaviors, they were also tapping into something that we call a core state, but it's a very deep, profound experience. And words were coming out of their mouth like oneness, you know, profound sense of love or beingness or, wholeness. And this wasn't a group that had, necessarily a spiritual background, um, but they were tapping into these very profound states. And that's what core transformation does, is in addition to changing things we want to change, we also get to access this inner source of well-being. It's not just words, it's like an experience of it. And so in those 3 days, I decided this is what, it's going to be at least one major focus of my work from here on out. And so I asked Connie Ray, my sister, would it be all right if we write a book together? And she said yes. And so yeah, and so I was very glad for that. Yeah, it's been near and dear to my heart ever since.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And what a story. That's amazing. The transformation that people were going through just after 3 days. That's really, really amazing. And I love, hearing the passion that you have around how inspired and maybe impressed you were after sort of experiencing that for the first time and actually seeing these folks going through the program really having this huge shift. Um, so amazing. I love how, things like this, like huge transformations can happen in such a short period of time. If you're willing to go through the process and actually, actually follow through on the process, right? Because, you mentioned it is a process, and I don't know, is it always an in-person experience? Like, I'm curious as to know, is it always in person? And if it's not, do people get the same results? Can you maybe share a little bit about, how intense the process is, and how it might work in different modalities?
Okay, so yeah, so what it is it's a guided inner exploration. So we're not just like talking about things and having a nice conversation, although there's nothing wrong with that. But what we're doing is a guided inner exploration so that we can tap into, well, first we tap into the inner part of us that it has been generating whatever it is that we wanted to change. So like we might be working with anger or anxiety or biting nails or eating too many snacks or um, negative thinking or being critical, judgmental of ourselves or others. So there's a very, very wide range of things that people want to change, right? And so then it's an inner process where we tap into the inner part of us that's generating that. So, because, if consciously, if that's where the whole thing came from, then we would have already changed it. But our conscious mind, isn't really in charge of that. If we've been wanting to change it and it still hasn't changed, we need to tap into the unconscious part. So we do that. And then we guide this inner part of us to this, like redirecting its attention in such a way that this part ends up tapping into its deepest desire that it probably wasn't even on this part's radar screen before we started this, but we find it, and it's always something at a beingness level, like like those words I was saying before, like wholeness and oneness and presence. And sometimes it's something that doesn't even really have a word. It's like, I don't know what to call this. It's just kind of like isness or something. And then that becomes the resource that transforms the whole experience of this part so that the person can change without having to use willpower or struggling with themselves or trying to suppress something within themselves.
Mm.
So that's a little bit what it's like. And then you also had asked, can other people get these results too, right? So, and that is actually one of the most exciting things about it because we have it. It's like we have it in a script. We tell people exactly what to say for the basic, for the foundation level. And then we also teach them exactly what to say for the most common kinds of challenges that can come up. So by the time they've done the advanced training, and then we have our coach certification as well. And the thing is that again, people wonder, if I learned this, okay, it's great that somebody else is really good at it, somebody else can get good results, but will I be able to get good results? And so we've actually done a study that has been accepted for publication in a peer-reviewed journal. And in this study, volunteer participants were working with one of our coaches in training. So they weren't working with me, they weren't working with one of the quote experts. They were working with people that we had trained, and some of them had just started learning core transformation like within the past year before this. And so, and what we found was that 80%, about 80% of the participants rated the amount of change they got at least 6 out of 10, and it was 10 out of 10 for the issue that they worked with. And we did ask them to pick something mild to medium since there's only going to be 2 sessions. Um, but would you like to hear some of the examples of what happened for them, what they wrote on the form at the end of the study?
Oh, I would love to. I mean, I just love the fact that you actually have a study that's going to be published in a peer-reviewed journal, because that in itself is like, who's doing that, like with sort of, coaching modalities. So so
Yeah.
that is really, really cool. So yeah, I would love for you to share some of
Okay.
those things. That would be amazing.
Awesome. And actually, since you mentioned that, we do have two other studies that are already published. This new one is the one we're excited about, though, because it shows how our coaches can learn to be effective in our program.
Mm.
So yeah, so one person said, one of the participants said, I have stopped food grazing, which is the core of what I approached my coach with. Interestingly, I have also found a new clarity in my thinking. Some big decisions, which I have been playing with for some time, years, I have made and feel really good about them. And they are definitely in my and those around me best interests. So what's interesting about this is that from what this person said, um, I'm not sure if it was a she or a he, but they will say they were working with food grazing, and then kind of as a side effect, they also found this new clarity, and they were able to make some big decisions,
Wow.
and that can happen with core transformation because we're making a fundamental shift at the level of our being.
Mm.
Okay, so here's another one, a lot shorter. Fearfulness has gone, left the building. Next one, I feel more kind and flexible. This was very significant for me.
Wow.
Next person was, I was a person who got irritated and angry when a small thing happened or when my expectations were not met.
Mm.
After sessions, I feel more relaxed, and when the situations arise where I usually get irritated, I'm able to be calm and at peace. I'm even able to face the persons during those situations. I can convey the message in an appropriate way. I realized my own worth. So that one had a lot to
Wow.
say. Um,
Yeah.
then one person said alignment, clarity of focus, more purpose-driven activities.
Mm.
One person said more peace with my relationship with my teen son.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm starting to get goosebumps just as I'm saying some of
Yeah,
these things.
absolutely.
One person said, I stopped sweating excessively under my armpits while making cold calls and feeling more centered. Uh, then one said, I have accessed my own inner bliss more and can feel more
Mhm.
lighthearted about situations in life, view them with humor. And so, and this is just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
There's so many, 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 many more of these, but it
Yeah.
gives you kind of an idea of the variety of what people report after
Mm.
just two sessions with a coach
Yeah.
in training.
That is amazing. That is amazing, those types of results after just two sessions with somebody who hasn't been doing it like very long, like isn't an expert, has just learned sort of the process and how to coach it. And just, I know, each of those different examples, people were working on different things, but there is sort of a general overall sense. The common thread that I'm seeing is that, that centered and internal bliss and peacefulness.
Yes.
That people have achieved, which is amazing. And that like you said earlier, I think you had described it as almost like an isness, right? I think you used that word. I actually love that when you said that. I'm like, ooh, that's a word that just you can feel it. You can feel what that means.
Yes, yes, I think so too. And yes, that is a common thread for sure from the experience of core transformation. And also, so there are other ways of accessing profound states, like people who are really good meditators can reach a profound state. What's different about core transformation is that we're reaching this through the very part that had been causing the problem that the person wanted to change. And for that reason, it's like there's no resistance to it.
Mm.
If we had just found a resource someplace else and tried to impose it on the part, then oftentimes the part doesn't want it. The part will resist
Yeah,
that. And it's like, okay, I'm not going
right.
to change. That's not what I want. But by getting it through the part in the way that we do, it's really transformative. And there's no resistance at all because the part's actually getting what it's been wanting all
Mm.
along. And then it's like everything else, it's like then the change actually happens more or less automatically. It's still guided. There's still
Right.
some guiding happening, but the change itself, it happens just from the inside out without any trying or without any kind of effort or
Mm.
pressure.
Wow, that's just amazing. I love that you know this process exists even like where people are getting such amazing results. I just remembered that I did want to come back to something that you said sort of way back, but
Hmm.
only because it was an acronym that you used that I don't know that all of my listeners will know, and so I just wanted to revisit that before we get too far off topic.
Yeah,
But
yeah, sure.
you had talked about NLP, and I was just wondering for people who might not know what that is, if you might explain that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, good question. So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And basically what it's about is it's the study of how each person creates their subjective experience, or it's like their own personal world that they live in. Because, we could say we're all on the same planet, and yet in a certain sense, we all have our own world. Two people could be in the exact same situation and then have a totally different take on it because, it's their subjective experience that each of us creates. And so NLP is the study of this, and then, of course, in how to make changes in that subjective experience. And
Mm,
and NLP is kind of known for methods that work relatively quickly for making changes. And it's also very precise step by step, rather than, some kind of more vague thing and people are trying to emulate what somebody's doing, but it's kind of mysterious. How did that happen? And then they try it and then it doesn't work the same way for them. So with NLP, it's very precise so that people can replicate it. So that's NLP in general. And then where core transformation comes in is we take things to that deeper level. So of tapping into what many people would call a spiritual level of experience. And so it has the same precision as the other methods in NLP. It has the same um, the same in terms of being able to get changes relatively quickly, and in addition, we are making such a deep, profound level change. That's what's kind of unique about core transformation.
mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it does sound very unique as you describe it because, I don't know well, and I don't have huge amounts of knowledge in this space, but I just love the way you describe it and
Mm.
how impactful and just like in such a like I'm just like in shock at like how quickly people can get results.
I know. It really is. It is. I mean, for me, I've been around this for more than 30 years, and still, like I say, I was starting to get goosebumps as I was reading these
Yeah,
things because for each of these people, it's like a very special change that they got that means a lot to them. Um,
yeah.
I just wanted to come back real quick to mention that I learned, many other methods in the field of NLP first before learning core
Mm,
transformation, but you don't have to. It's totally fine
mm,
to learn core
mm,
transformation. We have many people in our coaching program who have never had any other NLP training. So,
mm.
because we give everybody what you need, starting from the beginning, whether or not you've had any other background in anything, for that
Got it.
matter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the things I was just about to ask you is for people that might be interested in learning this approach, like what background or expertise would they, or maybe education they would need to come in to work with you to become core transformation coach. But it sounds like not really anything at all.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. And so when people do have a background, well, there's two things. One is it actually helps if they're willing to put whatever that is aside while they're learning core transformation, rather than trying to kind of mix in what they already know. And so yeah, so that in a certain sense, people who don't have any background at all have a certain advantage, where they
Mm.
don't, they don't
They
need
don't have
to.
to unlearn anything.
Yeah, yeah, or just even set it aside temporarily.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the first thing. The other thing, though, is that core transformation works really well alongside of other modalities.
Mm,
So if somebody already is like a hypnotherapist or a psychotherapist in whatever way they are accustomed to doing things, they can continue to use what they already know, and by adding core transformation to their their palette of options, then that can just allow them to get to go farther with what they already know. So it allows other methods to work better, actually.
Mm.
Um, because when a person has made kind of these deep level changes, it tends to become then easier to make, changes with other methods too.
Yeah, that's really I love that it's so flexible, like that you can just, just learn this, come in as a coach, not have any background really, and then be able
Mhm.
to work with clients and help them create these amazing shifts, or even just sort of add it on as an add-on to something that somebody's already doing in an existing practice. So
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love that it's not, limited in, because there are some things, modalities, tools, or programs where it's sort of like this is the thing, right? And it's not necessarily easily adjustable or something that you can just add on to something else. So I love
Yeah.
that flexibility.
Yeah, now we do recommend when you're doing core transformation, then just do that at that moment, rather than if you try to mix in other modalities at the same time, then that tends to water down the results. However, that said, like for example, I use core transformation. I also use something else quite a lot called wholeness work, and I love both of these. And I use them both with any client who works with me very long. I'll end up working with both of these modalities, but I don't do them both at the same time because that would just that would water down the results if I did that.
Mm. Hmm. Ah, awesome, awesome. All right. So I know we've talked a lot about sort of the book, corporate transformation, what it is that you do with that, and the coaching program where you're teaching coaches to sort of learn this process. I'm curious about the program itself. How long is that program? How long do people have to go through that to become a core transformation coach?
Okay. So, well, there's actually three levels of training. So
Mm.
the first level is our foundation course, and that is 6 half days. So it's 6 modules spread out over like one 4-day weekend and then a 2-day weekend. Um, And we do that. We've been doing that twice a year. We might end up doing it more than that. I don't know, but we do it multiple times a year. And so after the foundation training, then most professionals find that they can already begin using core transformation with their easier clients and straightforward issues. So they're already, and some people have found that their whole practice has been transformed just from the foundation training. So then there's a advanced training, and this one we do once a year, and it teaches people. it- well, one of the main things that you learn in the advanced training is solutions to the most common difficulties that people might have with the process. And so that by knowing these difficulties, how to respond to them, then it becomes possible to do core transformation with a much, much wider range of clients and client issues. And that is like also 6 half days of training plus 5 practice sessions as well. Um, and so that I believe that's it for that one. Okay, so then the coach certification training, we also do this one time a year, and that is we limit it to a smaller group. It's more intensive. With this one, there are, I believe, 13 modules altogether, but one of those is a bonus on marketing. So I think there's 12 units altogether, not counting that. And some of them are training with me and also my associate Mark Andreas. He's also my nephew, but in terms of this, he's my associate, my colleague. So so anyway, so we both are trainers for the advanced and the coach certification training. And and then some of the sessions are led by mentors in small groups, so that people get in an incredible amount of one-on-one individual care and attention in the coach training. And there's practice, there's feedback. They give feedback to each other, and so and in this last one. we ask people at the end, how has their confidence changed? How has their ability to use the basic process changed? And how has their ability to respond to something unexpected that happens? How have these things, changed over the course of the training? And on average, people went on all three of these. They went for a round of 4 or less, up to around an 8 or more on a scale
Wow.
of 1 to 10. Yeah, so their confidence, their ability to
Mm.
use the basic process, and their ability to respond flexibly to something unexpected that happens in a session. All of these rose really tremendously during the coach certification training.
Wow. So it's not then just a training to be a coach, but it's also like there's some personal work in there too. It's
Oh,
they're doing the work on themselves as well as just learning the process to help somebody else through it.
yeah, throughout all of them. In fact,
Mm.
the foundation, the advanced, the coach training in all of these, you know, the thing is, and this is a truism, right? With any kind of modality, if you have applied it in your own life, then you're going to be more effective at guiding somebody else.
Absolutely.
However, I think it's even more true with core transformation because we're guiding people to a place in their experience that they might not have ever experienced before. And
Mm.
so, if we can go there ourselves as we're guiding somebody else, if we can go easily access that deep level within our own nature, then we're going to be a more effective. Then it's like all of our nonverbal communication will support what we're saying with our words
Mm.
as we're guiding somebody, and that can make a huge, huge difference.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And not to mention just to be able to share. It's like I can share if I'm talking to somebody, I can say, "Oh yeah, I worked with something like that too," you know? And and yeah, and so being able to relate on that level with people, it's like we have been where they are and
Mm-hmm.
we have experienced change in that area,
Right.
you know. I mean, not that we have to work with every single area under the sun, but you know, but basically, we can relate to what other people are going through because we are also going through it ourselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's so important, right? When
Oh,
as you're guiding
totally.
somebody through that you've actually gone through the process yourself.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, especially for this work is like and that's a big key for effectiveness with core
Mm-hmm.
transformation is applying it. And that's how we teach it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if is we have exercises so somebody guides somebody else, a partner, and then their partner will guide them. And so they experience both sides of that and it's just, tremendously it's people end up being so much more competent and also confident after that as compared to if all they did was to watch a demonstration or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, wow. Awesome. I do want to start to wrap up. We've had such a
Yes.
wonderful conversation. I've learned so much about what it is that core transformation is and the program that you have to train others to sort of put this out into the world and spread this process with people and help them transform. But before we completely wrap up, I just wanted to find out from you, are there any final words of wisdom that you would like to share? Anything else that you'd like to let our audience know?
Yes, thank you. So, what I would say to everybody who is watching and listening, whether you're a coach or somebody else, or just a person who wants change for yourself, is that there is a place within you, a place of tremendous resourcefulness. And this, no matter what you have been through in life, it is still there. And so, it's possible to lose touch with that. But it is not possible to destroy it. It is still there and it's possible to get in touch with that once again. And I think uh, pretty much everybody is much happier once we do.
Hmm. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I love that message. It sort of makes me think of I can't remember the quote exactly, but it's like, and maybe it's the Rumi quote around love. And I don't even remember what it off the top of my head right now. I'm like, it's something about barriers and things. But I mean, essentially, everything that you need is inside of you, and sometimes it's just been buried or hidden, or things have happened in life, and you've just forgotten those parts of yourself. Um, and it's just rediscovering that what's already there, right? And so thank you so much
Exactly.
for, yeah, thank you so much for that message. I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on. Again, I just feel really honored and blessed to be able to have a chance to connect with your audience.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. And yes, thank you so much for sharing all of this with my audience. And if anybody's interested in learning more, the links to find the program are in the show notes.
I invite you to subscribe to the Embrace Balance Discover Joy podcast and join our community. If you feel inspired by what you hear, please leave a review and share this podcast with others who might benefit. And remember, it's never too late to embrace balance and discover joy in your life. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes filled with inspiring stories and valuable insights. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.